More and more, I'm getting questions from folks that are thinking about Southwest Florida about building custom instead of finding something that's existing on the market. Today, I'm going to sit down with Mark Sultana, the owner of DSDG Architects, an award-winning architectural firm here in Sarasota, to talk about what you can expect if you're going to venture into the custom build process. Stick around. Mark, first of all, thanks for making time for me today.
Absolutely.
We are in your brand new space over here, which is quite incredible. Maybe give us, before we get into the conversation, a little bit about what's in the space and what the thought was behind expanding the footprint of your office itself.
Yeah, great. So I've been thinking about this for years, and it was always hard to try to get the collaboration, is what we've called the design collaboration. It was always hard to get, all the vendors that we thought would make a good fit with our brand into one space. And it just kind of dominoes fell, and we found the perfect space that would accommodate everything we wanted to do. So we have our architecture studio here in the space. We have 20 employees, including 3 interior designers, 8 licensed architects, and everybody else has gone to architecture school working on their license. And then we have TMD windows and doors. So we have full scale windows and doors. They carry 24 different brands of windows and doors. Everything from Sierra Pacific, ES, Velocity, Eurowall. Somebody will get mad at me because I didn't mention the name, but there's so many of them that the client has all different options to choose from. And they're not obligated to buy the windows and doors from TMD, but they probably provide them the best price. So we also have Delano Cabinetry. So they carry 3 different cabinet brands, an American made in Florida,
Okay.
a Brazilian made in Brazil, and an Italian line. Depending on price points, we try to line the client up with the price point that they're looking for. In addition, we're going to have appliances in here from Sub-Zero, Thermador, I believe some GE, and other brands that we normally work with. Maybe even some Miele, we're working on that. And then in the back of the space, we have a full Lutron design center. So the Lighting Loft is the company. They have a whole house set up. So there's a dining room, a kitchen, and a living room set up with all the latest and greatest technology for lighting control, shades, blinds, Ketra lighting. Ketra lighting, probably need to do a whole video on that because it's pretty amazing. It's a lighting that'll, from one bulb, that'll change colors and lumens and anything you want to do. It's pretty amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Very cool. So that really, I think, helps lead into the discussion. I'm getting more clients that are thinking about coming down and building custom, whether it's waterfront or something on the mainland. And there's a lot of questions that are asked, especially for people that aren't familiar with Florida. They're coming from afar. So when we start looking at that process for somebody, I'm sure site selection is going to play a big part of that. Of course, not only budget-wise, but what's going to be available. So maybe kind of break down, waterfront versus non-waterfront, some of the considerations people should have before they venture into this process.
So depending on where they're looking, every single municipality has their own set of regulations, zoning regulations. So for instance, the city of Sarasota, Sarasota County, Longboat Key, Siesta Key has an overlay district. Casey Key and Manasota Key have an overlay district. Anna Maria has their own, actually Anna Maria has 3. Anna Maria, Holmes Beach, and Bradenton Beach. 3 different zoning regulation rules. And those zoning regulations have everything in them from setback requirements to what's called building coverage. And then every municipality measures their building coverage differently also. So if you're not an experienced architect working in this field, yeah, you can look it up online, but there's nuances that if you don't know what you're doing, you could create some serious issues for the client. There's also things like daylight plane, height limitations. I mean, I can go on and on and on about all the regulations there are.
You mentioned the term overlay district. I'm not familiar with that. What is that for folks that also?
So Siesta Key and Casey Key and Manasota Key have a conservation overlay district. So that has additional setbacks, additional building coverage requirements. It's a whole list of things. So the first thing we do is typically when we're helping a client find a lot, they come up with 2 or 3 that they feel like they'll be a good fit for them, right? So then we do a site study. So we take that lot, we analyze how big a house, how big the footprint is, what they can do, what they can't do. And I always try to visit the site, because another thing that a lot of people don't realize, and if you're looking for a lot in the city of Sarasota, trees are a big deal.
Okay.
So big trees, you can't take them down. It'd be act of God, hurricane. That will allow you to take those trees down. So there's grand oaks and grand trees that we have to work around a lot of times.
Okay.
So it's very important to analyze that site and everything about it. You know, from does it have water and sewer? Does it have giant trees on the site that won't allow you to build? Can you build around the trees that are there? You know, what are the existing factors? Like, does it have a wall around it? What's next door? What's behind it? All those sort of things. I think as an experienced architect that's been doing this in this city for, well, DSDG's 25th anniversary is this year.
Congratulations.
But I've been working as an architect in Sarasota since 1994.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I look in.
you do. I was going to say, I've been at it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Style-wise of architecture down here, there's quite a variety.
Sure.
Is there any limitations when people they're contemplating a certain style for those different municipalities? Any regulations there, or is it pretty open as to what, as long as you're meeting those requirements?
That's open with the municipalities. But
Okay.
one thing we didn't mention are HOAs.
Yes.
So there are some HOAs that don't allow certain types of architecture.
Okay.
So we have to be very careful about that. So for instance, along Boquete and Bay Isles, they have in their HOA, they only allow 15% of the roof of the houses that they're building to be flat in appearance.
Okay.
So, you know, that if a client comes to me and says, hey, I want a very modern house, I love the house you did over here, and that house had all low pitched roofs, I have to tell them that we have to be a little creative about getting that look, but still having sloped roofs.
Okay.
So we recently did that with a house on Bay Isles where we actually inverted the roof like a butterfly, and it acted in 2 different ways. We used it to hide the solar panels because the HOA didn't allow solar panels to be seen from the street. So we inverted the roof, hid the solar panels on the 2 inversions, but then created a parapet on the front and back. So even though the roof was sloped, from appearance, it looked flat.
So when folks are looking at this, I mean, I'm sure the variety of price points of custom construction, be it the lot, what you're looking for, the size and all that, I mean, there's the sky's the limit down here for what we're seeing. Is there, I guess, maybe a base price or a base value that you say, like, unless you've got X number of dollars to put something in the ground, like custom's just not within your reach? You know, like, is there a budget in mind? I mean, I know you could build technically anything, but when you're considering all this stuff between lot acquisition and all that, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it has to do with budget, but it also has to do with your taste and what you're thinking you want, right? So you're not going to go out and buy a tract home in Lakewood Ranch if you're used to high quality finish and finishes throughout the house. I think you can get into a custom home pretty economically, but you have to choose your lot, right? So if you're looking, say, east of the trail in the city of Sarasota, you may want to think about actually venturing on the other side, on the county side versus the city side.
Okay.
I think there's better price points in the county and your taxes are less.
Okay.
Not to say there's anything wrong with the city, it's just, it's a little more expensive, right?
Something.
So, but the east of the trail, we've done quite a few houses in that neighborhood. You know, you can pick up a lot for a decent price. And if you stick to a 1-story home with 2 or 3 core stem wall. That's the foundation system that we use.
Mhm.
And I think that's the most economical house you could build as a custom home.
And now to the other side of that, the
Sure.
least economical, and something that you do quite a bit of, and I've had the pleasure of walking through a number of them, waterfront. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, it's a desirable place to be. It changes not only the price of the lot, but the what's got to go into that construction to get that house even at ground level and above. So, what are the considerations with waterfront? I mean, you've got pilings, you've got all these other things to consider. What are your thoughts on what that entails, or considerations that people should have in that space?
Well, if you go from the most economical place to build, which would be a infill lot, not in flood zone, no big trees
Sure.
on it, to the most expensive place to build, you're talking on a barrier island on the beach. Those homes are, there's nothing cheap about them.
No.
The foundation system that you bury in the ground and never see again are hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And those are there to make sure the homes can withstand our 160 mile an hour wind load, our scour resistance that we have to have for wave action on the houses during hurricanes.
Mhm.
There's nothing cheap about it. So the lots are more expensive. The structure of the homes are more expensive, and typically the finishes are more expensive. So those homes, those start really around $1,000 a square foot and on up.
I mean, go as high as they
Yeah.
want to go.
Yeah.
What you're kind of on the forefront, not kind of, you are on the forefront of design here. So what are you seeing in terms of trends, what people are looking for, maybe things that you're bringing to people's attention that they're not maybe familiar with, coming from different climates and different parts of the country?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that entirely?
Well,
That's
I
a
mean,
pretty good question, but
yeah, well, I think that the big trend, and it's been the trend for quite some time, are open floor plans,
Mhm.
right? No separate dining room. Basically, a space where the family can gather and everybody's in one space and you can interact together, right? Dining, kitchen, living room. The kitchen's always the heart of the home. I'm sure you've heard that. Everybody says it, but it's true. It's the place where everybody gathers, and it's hard to get your guests out of the kitchen, right? So might as well bring the living room and the dining room to the kitchen into one space so that everybody's there. There's no oh, Johnny's over in the back room in the living room and watching the football game. Well, bring the football game to the kitchen, and everybody can gather together. That and the interaction of that, we call it a great room space, and the outdoors.
okay.
So if you could take a covered outdoor area and create giant glass doors that open and have an indoor outdoor where the space is all one, I think it makes for the best type of home and interaction of spaces. And that's the trend. That's what everybody's asking for.
And when I know you've designed some very large homes, and a lot of the times those seem to have multiple spaces for sitting, a lot of bedrooms, guest bedrooms. Anything else you're seeing kind of in the larger home space right now that maybe you weren't seeing 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or is it kind of the same thing? We're just bringing it to a broader scale and higher end finishes.
I think what I'm seeing more of are owners asking for bigger, like closet sanctuary spaces in their primary bedrooms. So they have a primary bedroom, they have a his and hers closet, they have elements of the bathroom that are his and hers.
Mhm.
Sometimes we are asked to have 2 separate bathrooms. But it's more of like a sanctuary space, wellness areas in those spaces, like saunas, cold plunges. We've got 4 different houses that have
Okay.
cold plunges going in. Just wellness spaces. But they typically happen either in a home gym area or in the primary suite.
Okay.
So that I've been seeing lately more so than I have in the past.
Very interesting. Anything that you were doing early on in design down here that you find that is not coming in as a request anymore? Things that have just been, I mean, we've seen some stuff that are outdated. What stuff do you see that's totally fallen off that maybe you were doing early on?
Well, when I was doing it early on, we didn't do any modern houses at all. It was all Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And we tried to keep the Mediterranean very authentic.
Mm-hmm.
But authentic is expensive, right? It's not the Lakewood Ranch Mediterranean, which I don't even know what that is. But it's authentic Mediterranean architecture, Italy and Spain. And lately we're starting to get clients to talk about it again. But I always tell them we're not doing, the Mediterranean that we call it like lick and stick. You take a piece of foam that looks like stone and you stick on it. We're doing authentic architecture, right?
Okay.
So something that you would see on the coast in Tuscany or the Amalfi Coast, something like that on the beach on the Barrier Islands, I think is beautiful and timeless,
Yes.
right? So starting to see some of that come back, but again, it's expensive. It's not, cheap architecture.
Do you find that the more modern is more affordable to create, or is it just? I mean, because I look at modern, I think it seems like it's got to be pretty easy. There's less trim and this, but I've got to imagine that the construction of that equates to a cost, right?
Yeah.
The execution of it. So, any thoughts on that at all?
It's mostly the percentage of glass and the fine finish. There's no hiding a perfect 90-degree corner in modern, right?
Yeah.
Typically, we have no casing around the doors and no base molding on the walls, or it's a recessed base. Things like that. The finish can be a little more expensive than your standard other style home, but in those homes, then you're incorporating crown molding and big base. That stuff is expensive as well. So I think the inside, the cost for a modern home versus say a Mediterranean or a West Indies is pretty similar. I think where modern gets a little more expensive are, some of the cantilevers we create in the architecture and the percentage of glass.
Okay.
But I haven't seen a big delta between the two builds when you put it together and look at the overall price point of the house.
Understood. So as I'm personally kind of venturing into this, hiring an architect to, commission a custom home, what should people take into consideration of that? Should they expect for the processes? I'm being in real estate for, like 15 years now, and I'm still unaware of what this process is going to look like. So what can I expect? What can those that are, entering into this, what should they expect as well?
Yeah, I think you're right. Most people who haven't built a house before don't really know what an architect does, right?
Sure.
Draw pretty pictures. It's a little bit more than that. So as an architect, residential architecture is 4 phases.
Okay.
So we have schematic design, that's phase 1. That's where we create the floor plans and the site plans and solve the puzzle of the wish list.
Okay.
We also create a full 3D model of every project we do. So in the computer, we build a model. It's got all the exterior finishes on it. If we have a panel on the house that has wood or glass, you can see it. It looks like it's already built.
Okay.
And client's like, okay, when can we move in? All right, well, let's go to phase 2. So phase 2 is design development. In the design development, we're tweaking the design, continuing to evolve it. We're creating electrical and lighting plans to highlight the spaces and how they're lived in every day. And we create a cut section through the house to show the materials that the house will be built.
Okay.
The walls, the roof, the ceiling, all that stuff. Then when we have that phase done, and the client's collaborating with us through both of those phases quite often, we're presenting drawings to them, we review the drawings, sometimes virtually, sometimes in person. Then we go into construction documents. So that's where we ask clients, okay, no more changes. We're actually going to do the technical information.
Okay.
So that's phase 3. We're creating basically the instruction manual on how to build the house.
Okay.
So it could be anywhere from a 20-sheet set to a 100-sheet set, depends on the size of the house. And there's floor plans with dimensions, elevations, details, sections. We typically cut a full section through any part of the house that's different than any other part of the house.
Okay.
Okay. During that phase, we get the engineers involved. So you have your architect, you have your structural engineer that designs the foundation and all the beams in the house. You have your mechanical engineer that does the ducting plan. We do all of our electrical in-house.
Okay.
We design all the lighting for the house. just because we know the house, I think, better than the engineers do, so we know where to kind of place lighting to make it look right.
Makes sense.
And typically we like the client, depending on the size and degree of house, to bring an interior designer on board during the design development phase 2. I missed that, but it's a very important component of the build. And it's important to have a contractor involved during phase 2 as well. This way, if there's a budget, the contractor can help us make sure that what we've designed fits into that budget.
Makes sense.
Okay. So then the instruction manual, that goes into permit.
Okay.
All right. So the contractor takes the drawings, submits them for permit in whatever municipality it is. Sometimes we get comments back from the municipality, sometimes we don't. We do a very thorough set, so it's rare that we get very many. And then we start construction. So during construction, a lot of clients ask me, well, are you around when we're building the house? I'm like, absolutely. That's part of our fees.
Okay.
So during construction administration, which is phase 4, we're visiting the job sites. We're keeping the client abreast of what's happening, making sure that the contractor's doing what we've drawn.
Okay.
We review all the invoices from the contractor to the client before they pay them. We review them and say, yeah, what they're billing you for is equal to what's actually being constructed. And we're there along the way doing site visit logs and all the way to the day the client moves in the door. So it's a very, symbiotic relationship between all of us. Yeah, collaboration.
I know every municipality's got to be a little bit different in terms of permitting, but somebody shows up today, they've already got a lot selected. Mark, let's go. What do you typically give them for a time frame on? Of course, it's going to be as collaborative as they are, the feedback that they give, but
Right.
reasonably speaking, how long of a process until they, that they can at least get to permitting? Because that's, kind of up to the municipality. But what are your thoughts on a time frame for how quickly somebody can move on something?
Realistically, it depends on the size of the home.
Okay.
If you're talking, say, our average size home that we design, we do smaller ones, we do bigger ones, but average is about 5,000 or 6,000 square foot.
Okay.
So for a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot house, not on the beach, because that's a whole nother permitting process,
Sure.
but like on the bay, on a canal, inland lot, you're looking at from the start of our design process to ready for permit is about 6 months.
Okay.
The bigger the house, the longer the time, because there's more detail, there's more to talk about, really. And then permitting is typically 2 months.
Okay.
Through the municipalities, and that's an average, right? Sometimes Longboat Key is pretty quick. We can get a permit there in about a month.
Okay.
And then other municipalities are just slower for whatever reason they are.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Fun conversation.
I want to thank Mark for his time today. If you're considering a custom project and you want to get in touch with the professionals that can make it happen, reach out to me. And until the next time, folks, be well.